Hello everyone, this is Reviewer Beware, and how did The Big Lebowski become such a beloved cult classic? Cult classics are one of the great landmarks of cinema. A lot of the characteristics of a great cult classic include some of the following. They form a subculture all their own, they are very quotable, they are rewatchable, and audience participation is a large part of the enjoyment. The range of cult classics is much wider than you might think. Movies such as Big Trouble in Little China, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, The Room, and Rocky Horror Picture Show are all commonly cited as cult classics, and even if a movie doesn't have a huge presence in the mainstream, it may still have a dedicated fandom. In 1998, directors Joel and Ethan Coen, fresh off the wildly successful Fargo, which was released in 1996, created the now beloved cult classic named The Big Lebowski. Not only has it become a cult classic, its dedicated fan base, who call themselves the Achievers, have left an impact unlike any other. The movie's appeal has led to someone creating a religion based on the film known as Judaism, founded in 2005. The celebration of this movie has also led to the creation of the festival known as Lebowski Fest, which began in 2002 in Louisville, Kentucky, and this fest has traveled to a lot of other cities since. Traditionally, these festivals have fans dressing as their favorite characters, watching the movie, and most importantly, bowling. The Big Lebowski was preserved in the U.S. National Film Registry in 2014 for being considered culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. I look up critically acclaimed films every time I first watch them, and if I see that a film was selected, I get really excited to see something so prestigious. It amazes me that one of my all-time favorite movies is considered so important. At first, the movie didn't seem like it was going to amount to the phenomenon it became, but it became a cult classic for being one of the most strange and offbeat movies out there. It is undoubtedly a cult following I myself can get behind, as it's a personal favorite of mine. I find it endlessly rewatchable, quotable, hilarious, and surprisingly philosophical. It's an honor to examine how this massive cult classic became a favorite for so many achievers. Plot exhibits a trait that I like about most cult classics, because there is no simple method to explain what this movie is about to people who haven't seen it. The main character is Jeffrey Lebowski, but he's best known as the Dude, man. Our leading man is an unemployed slacker living in LA when along the way he's involved in a ransom plot because they think he owes him money, as opposed to another man named Jeffrey Lebowski, aka the actual Big Lebowski. I could either explain that to people, or I could try and make a case as to why this movie has affected so many people instead. One of the key elements involves some jerks taking a leak on the dude's rug, and this is a serious plot point. It is one of the most indescribable movies ever. The Big Lebowski is absolutely better seen than explained. There is a one-of-a-kind storytelling here by the Coen brothers. Instead of being driven by the story, the movie is driven by the characters, the dialogue, and the philosophy. You got an alcoholic drink named the White Russian, a bunch of bowling, weird dream sequences, weed, nihilism, and a vast supporting cast including Julianne Moore and the late Philip Seymour Hoffman. The movie is very unhinged, yet meticulous. It has a plot that both seems like it means nothing and everything at the same time. The movie is tailored most of all to the dynamics of the characters and what they depict. The Dude is a once-in-a-lifetime main character, and my favorite main character in all of cinema. I'm going to expand on the fact that I mentioned Judaism earlier, because a character must be unique if the way they are written reaches theology. If you don't take this religion seriously, you wouldn't be the first, but the creator is really serious about this. March 6th is the day of the Dude. The religion is built around what the Dude represents as a character. Just take it easy, don't let life get to you too much, and abide. Judaism has plenty of parallels to Buddhism, which on Jeff Bridges' Wikipedia page, it shows that he practices Buddhism and meditation. Despite the fact that the Dude is pulled left and right by the movie's events, the demeanor of the Dude is balanced, and that's why he is one of the most unique characters in the history of cinema. The Dude is taken on a journey he did not ask for under circumstances that shouldn't have anything to do with him. It's a total fluke that some random person just happens to share his name anyway. Granted, one time I looked up Josh Irby, and it was some country singer, and I would rather see y'all in the mosh pit during that sweet, sweet heavy metal concert. His Dudeness, or El Duderino if you're not into that whole brevity thing, is a character whose response to life trying to weigh him down is to never allow himself to be weighed down, and coasting through life as if he's a channel surfer who has no rush to find a channel. I may read into this a bit much, but I wonder if the name known as the Dude signifies this. If the character's not concerned with some of the same things most of us worry about, why would he worry about having a legacy attached to his name? He isn't going to talk about the namesake of who he is because a character like this will not care about it. Remember how I said the dialogue is hilarious? Well, Bridges' best contribution is how often he seems to be low-key about delivering lines casually in situations where panic or concern would be warranted. I could not stop laughing at the response of the dude when he got his apartment broken into. Most people would panic, scream, be angry, or just be the dude and say,
Hey, this is a private residence, man.
This is his response to having his home being broken into by strangers. In the battle with the Nihilists, as Walter is ready to fight like it's Vietnam, the dude's voice is stammering as he tries to rationalize with irrational people.
The Big Lebowski gave me an empty briefcase.
His interactions with Maud are hysterical. You have a character in a house of a random stranger he just had sex with, waking up to pour a white Russian and listening to a person he just met, only to find out at the end of the movie, according to Sam Elliott's narration, that he impregnated her in spite of hardly knowing her and him being unemployed simply because she wanted to have sex.
Then I happen to know that there's a little Lebowski on the way.
Despite his unemployment status and his slacker mentality, I think people are charmed by a character who does not feel the weight of this existence. I could talk about how I want to go with the flow, but here you have a character who actually does it. It might present some issues in his life, but I could see people being a lot happier if we did what the dude did and simply abide. The movie is also supported by the two characters who behave the complete opposite of the dude. John Goodman was just as amazing a casting for the role of Walter as Bridges was for the dude, and it brings me joy to see Goodman talk about The Big Lebowski so fondly.
The only movie I've ever watched my stuff on.
Goodman was unhinged, firm, and successfully captured a character who thinks he's supposed to be taken seriously, even if conventional wisdom says he would not be. If the dude is a stereotype of a hippie, Walter is the embodiment of a retired soldier worn down by PTSD. Walter will have you know about Vietnam, considering just how often he talks about it, including over Donnie's ashes, as he tries to tie it into every conversation. As comical as I find the dude, I find Walter equally hysterical because of his inability to be able to ever take it easy. Walter pulled a gun over a bowling game as if the bowler is some war criminal. He resorts to the most intense reaction possible for no reason. It's bowling.
Market zero!
Walter yelled constantly in situations where people could easily talk at room level volume. John Goodman delivered these lines hilariously, seemingly breathing through his entire diaphragm as if he's a death metal singer. Cannibal Corpse would be so proud. Walter is a person that doesn't have any ability to differentiate between what does or what does not call for serious action. He's a character in The Big Lebowski, but acts like a character in Apocalypse Now. Walter makes decisions impulsively and has a short temper, constantly yelling and acting out in rage. Walter is obsessively nostalgic about Vietnam, and oddly enough, the Judaism of his divorced wife, even biting part of an ear off nihilists who he assumes are anti-Semitic. Why is Walter always going on about the religion of a woman he's divorced with as if it's his own religion? Because he cares too much, and that creates the central conflict. If Walter was not in this movie would end in 20 minutes. He didn't have to beat the snot out of someone else's car while cursing about a random kid who wouldn't pay him any attention or give him any information. But I must say, this is my vote for the funniest scene in the entire movie.
You see what happens, Larry?
He also didn't have to risk endangering himself and the dude by giving the dude the steering wheel mid-drive to make a decision he didn't bother to consult with the dude about once. A lot of these conflicts could have been resolved more quickly if Walter would have just sat down and listened for 5 minutes, but he is incapable of putting his attitude aside. Walter is incapable of taking it easy or being relaxed about life. Walter is always looking for something to prove. He embodies a form of toxic masculinity where status and pride are far more important than a peaceful existence. The Dude and Walter are a strange duo because their behaviors are completely counterintuitive to each other. Donnie is portrayed by the beloved Steve Buscemi, the actor who asks such a deep question. Donnie is an interesting piece of the puzzle. He does not really have a huge presence in most of the biggest events of the story, yet he is still crucial to the philosophy of the movie. I am amused by the fact that Donnie has an uncanny ability to interject himself into the conversations the Dude and Walter are having, often humorously told,
Shut the f***,
as he is perpetually out of his element. His most significant contribution to the central conflict is being the one casualty despite the least involvement. The moment he got directly involved in the central conflict, he died. However, because of this, he is a big part of the ethos of The Big Lebowski. Donnie is an oblivious and aloof character until suddenly he has to deal with the price of not being one. He doesn't know or understand any of the conflicts, making him exactly like me the first time I ever saw this movie. Although I would bowl a solid 95 at best, and am not a good bowler like Donnie is. Donnie is humorous because he is perpetually out of touch. There's even a scene where he has a soda can and what appears to be candy while the Dude and Walter have beer. When Donnie got involved in the movie's final confrontation, he asks of all people Walter for assurance despite the fact that Walter is a human drill sergeant who keeps telling him to shut the up. I have no idea why Donnie listened to Walter as much as he did. He would often go to Walter for reassurance. Maybe Donnie should have studied up on his Judaism. Walter puts too much weight on life, whereas Donnie doesn't understand it and is consistently not involved in it. Donnie doesn't really understand what is going on because the audience is not easily supposed to either. In a lot of movies, people are on the edge of their seat waiting to see the story unfold, but in The Big Lebowski, the story is being chased after, and based on its legacy, it's okay that the audience is not too concerned that they struggle to find it. The movie seems to take after The Dude, as it's very loose and never seems to be in a rush. What's honestly wrong with that? The Dude is not unhappy with his existence, and no one is getting hurt by his existence. So why do we need to be rigid and care about what he does not have? Things for the most part kinda got resolved, sorry Donnie, and a lot of hilarious dialogue ensued in the meantime. The fact that this cult classic stuck to simply abiding as opposed to having to take us to some grand conflict. The Big Lebowski is a film built around the idea that maybe what matters is that we sometimes have something to spectate, and often not reading into these things and trying to understand them will solve the problem by itself. After all, the quotes are ingrained in its fandom's head, the characters are unforgettable, and there is not a single bad performance from the main characters to the supporting cast. Life often is nonsensical and there isn't a plot to it, and the film reminds us that sometimes we can take it a little easy. Nothing needs to be found, it's all right here. Now be like the Dude, abide and enjoy yourself, and try and stay in your element. Thank you for watching today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Reviewer Beware. I also have recently started a written film blog called A Glorious Film Nerd. I will post it in this video, so you can check that out if you want to see me write about movies and films I enjoy. Thank you, stay bumping, please abide, go watch The Big Lebowski.